Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to a delayed, but we're not that delayed task. We're 2 days delayed because I suck. That's basically what it comes down to. Uh, Apologies to everyone because my life is in utter chaos and I'm trying to maintain my commitment to sticking with it and having a bird squawk in my ear right beside us. Uh, of course, this is just going to be a gong show. So, Task, how you doing, man? Before we introduce our guest.
I have a lot less headaches than you do. I mean, it's just missed you on Tuesday, but and we're 12 hours or 16 hours early by doing the show now on Thursday evenings for the next month and a half or whatever it's going to be. For those who do not know, we've had some scheduling changes due to John having a change in his schedule. So we are going to be on in the evenings for the next 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, something like that. And it's an adjustment for us all, but we'll get through it. And hopefully, shortly, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled time. So, what we do is we're focusing our guests in the Western Hemisphere because those people in Europe, it's in the middle of the night. And although I think they should stay up to want to talk to us, John,
Oh,
maybe that's a little
absolutely.
bit arrogant of us. But we have a wonderful guest who is within the North American Union, let's call it. And so the time zone worked out well for her as it did for you, as it kind of does for me.
Yeah, no, I'm central, so I'm in Texas, so it actually does work really well for me. I'm glad to be here. First timer. Hi, everybody.
Texas is a different country, though, right? Isn't it? Like, isn't that?
They some days they think they are.
We have been, but we joined the union, so we're part of the United States, although occasionally we want to ride off into the sunset.
Yes, perfect.
Probably more these days than most. But anyway, I digress.
So Jennifer is here, and let's before we're gonna get into your story and how you came to Hive and stuff, but let's just go back to kind of maybe this is a good story. Your username, ePodcaster. Maybe describe that, and I'm pretty sure this will combine with the Hive experience, but maybe just go over, how you got here, basically.
So back in 2005, when I first heard about podcasting, I first was like, what the heck is this? And once I understood really what it was, and if you think about 2005, if you wanted to be read, you needed to be in the newspaper or a magazine. And if you wanted to be heard, you needed to be on the radio. And if you wanted to be seen, you needed to be on television or a movie. And yet all of a sudden there was these things called blogs and podcasts and vlogs, video blogs as they were called back then. And all of a sudden just anybody could record something, put it up on the web, and no one could stop us. Or we could write something, put it up on the web, and no one could stop us. And once I understood what that was, I was like, holy cow, this is going to change things. And the e-podcaster, because podcasting was what I was really attracted to, the E actually stands for entrepreneurial podcaster. But to write entrepreneurial podcaster at gmail.com or to make that a username was way too long. So I turned it into e-podcaster, and I have been e-podcaster ever since. And I feel like the business side of me and the podcaster and the person who likes to go, ooh, have you seen this? Have you heard about that? This is really cool. You should take a look at it. Version of myself really fits well into that username.
Well, I won't tell you some of the names I was called in 2005 and 1995 and 2015 and last week, actually. But anyway, John brings up a good point, and so hopefully now you can tie it in. So you got into podcasting, you got the e-podcaster name for sensible, logical reasons. And how did you find? Let's go before Hive. How did you find cryptocurrency? How did you find blockchain? When was the first time you came across this arena?
In 2017, I was speaking at a conference and was part of an entrepreneur community. And one of the gentlemen that was on stage was called Michael Taggart. and he was talking about cryptocurrency, and he was talking about BitShares, and he was talking about all kinds of things. And everyone in the audience, we were all like, eyes this big, because we were like, what is he talking about? Yet we were all an entrepreneur group, so we kind of thought, okay, this kind of sounds like our thing if we can understand what it means. And I understood probably maybe a third, if I'm lucky, of what he said, but yet it sounded very attractive to me. But at the very end, he says, oh, did you know that you can also blog, and people will pay you to blog if they find what you have to say interesting? And he talked about what is now known as the legacy chain. And in August of 2017, me and a bunch of other people that were at that conference went and created accounts there. And I wrote a few posts, got like 12 cents, and I couldn't find my people there. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And I went on my merry back to traditional social media, which is something that I've been doing for a long time. And then in March of 2021, I got a really good friend who's also a podcaster, Shane Mata, who's also on Hive, say, I'm doing this thing, and I think you should take a look at it. And that's where it all began.
Yeah, so you joined around the same time. What's that?
She said the legacy chain that's now known. So it's good. No reference shall be made towards the name of said legacy chain. Perfect.
See, I'm gonna have to, Jennifer, ask this. For anybody listening, John makes all the rules. I just follow along in the bay. And so, John, okay, so it's legacy chain. Can we still say the word Ethereum lots of times in each show? Is that allowed?
Dude, I mean, you can. It's probably not good for your health, because if you say it might cause like allergic reactions to
Right.
sanity.
See, John goes through. He does the audio, so like which he posts, and so he probably goes through and edits,
strips all that out.
Yeah.
The power of the editor.
Never listened to the podcast. He may edit me out. It just might be him and the guest the whole time.
The whole time.
If I hear MetaMask, I just edit it, and it's my voice that says Hive keychain. Like,
So, John, we have another one who showed up. She showed up the same month I did, August 2017. That's when I showed up. And but she left. She didn't stick around. She allowed the lack of rewards to influence her, which, by the way, they call me Dan, right?
Yeah.
I went through I was doing some stuff on the older posts in preparation for, views opening up at some point to all the way to the Genesis block. And so anyway, I was going through some of Dan's posts, and guess what? He didn't make any money for like 3 months either.
But he stuck it out.
And he didn't make any money. He just sucked it up and, was posting, making 20 cents, 15 cents, 10 cents. And, I was going through my old posts, and first off, I was a shit poster in the beginning too. And, I got no rewards, and, that's just how we all start. But those of us who stick around, it's a compounded machine. So I'm glad you came back, and I'm glad you're looking at the different options that are available and opportunities, because obviously
so many.
A lot has changed in the last 5 years, and the ecosystem is a lot more, I'll say, diverse in terms of what's offered and presented here, and the opportunities. And John and I talk about a lot. Obviously, he is right out of the same mold you are, entrepreneur, online entrepreneur. That's right up his alley, and what him and Blaine and Eliane and the programs they put together. But the opportunities for somebody to come into Hive and find a niche, develop their mojo on here, and just focus and go for it and stick with it. I think, and I'm not a social media expert, but I think the opportunity to stand out is so much greater here. And the opportunity to benefit financially in the long term is so much greater, simply because of the numbers game.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. What I didn't find on the legacy chain was community. And it's kind of like anything else. If you go into something by yourself and no one knows you and you don't know anyone else, I would go and comment, and it was kind of like awkward. It felt really awkward. I've kind of felt like, you know how when you're a teenager and you go through those awkward years, it felt really like unfamiliar. But when I went back and in March of 2021 at the urging of my good friend Shane, and he showed me and my family what was there. I was like, oh, this is like, it's grown up. Like, this is an entirely different medium. I mean, there was so much opportunity. It mirrored a lot of what I was doing on places like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, any number of places. I was like, oh, this is a totally different animal. So I left because I didn't find any real engagement. The 12 cents, I was still 12 cents was way more than what I was making on Twitter, but I just couldn't find my vibe. I couldn't find my people. And when we onboarded to Hive, because we had Shane there and we had one another as my family, then it was all of a sudden finding community was easy. It wasn't hard when I was on Hive. And I think it's just that whole mindset and the whole community that if you were going to pick up and go, and leave that legacy chain after that experience and go, you were going to really make a better effort because you were in control of it. It wasn't like, before you weren't or didn't feel like it if you thought you were. And I feel like the vibe on Hive is so welcoming and so like, you want to be a creator, go create those things. You want to build something, go build the things. Let's support one another. Let's encourage one another. It doesn't mean that there isn't, areas or opportunities maybe where there's a little bit of a friendly discourse or where people don't agree, but I feel like it's done with everyone thinking like, how can we make the chain better? How can we as a community grow so that it's something that's good for everyone? And to me, that community aspect is way more interesting to me. The earnings, absolutely fabulous, but it's not like as if I'm going to go out and buy hats or something. Well, maybe I could, but you know what I mean? It's not that. It's the pocket change at the end of your pocket at the end of the day that you put in the piggy bank. Sometimes you come home at the end of the day and there's no change in your pocket. You still come home. Sometimes you have $1 in your pocket. Sometimes you got 12 cents. Sometimes you got 50 cents. But when you add all that up over time, all of a sudden you take that full piggy bank to the bank and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is a few $100s. It didn't happen overnight. And I just kept looking at it and going, the same things I'm doing on traditional social media, I can do it over here on Hive. Well, why wouldn't I do that? And especially when there's a vibrant and rich and welcoming community who's willing to help someone like me who is new learn the ropes and give me a place where I can learn more and share what I'm doing and we can all grow together. So I think a lot of times folks focus in on that money aspect, and that's nice, but at the beginning you're not going to go buy a car. You're not going to do anything. It's
Mm.
the change at the bottom of your pocket. But putting stuff in the piggy bank, it adds up over time. And I think eventually we'll begin to see things go in a direction where people can have kind of those big kinds of moments. But if you're a creator, you're going to create content. It doesn't matter. So why not also do it on places like Hive?
Mm.
Well, one thing, and I do have the financial, economic, monetary background, so I come from that perspective quite frequently. But one of the things I love about Hive right now is when you look at the social media, the content creation, and I'll say even to a degree marketers, but that's not huge yet, but I think it's getting there. When you start to look at the plethora and the offering that we have, when you start to look at, okay, you got the long form blogging, you have listeners, which is really a revolutionary idea with email marketing. You got views, which I mentioned before, which is a reworking or revitalization of Stumble Upon. We now have Dbuzz and Leo Threads, which is your micro blogging. You got Likea. And so we have, and then of course there's 3Speak for the video, and now they're all podcasts anyway, so you can listen to them on any of your podcasting apps. So when we look at the social media aspects that are shaping up, and if somebody writes, and like you said, creates content, and you write a blog post, think about all those tools where you can take that same post or a video or a podcast, and you can distribute it within the Hive community 6 different ways. Although you really don't need to, because your following on one app is the same following on another app. So if you put up a 3Speak video and it shows up in your blog section, well, anybody's following you is going to see that. And that's pretty cool. And then you can drop it in Dbuzz, or you can throw it in Leo Threads and get yourself more exposure. You can send it out on listeners. And all of this is, I think, unmatched and unparalleled out there. I mean, we can go into the financial aspects of this
No,
chain all you want, but
but you
just
hit
from
on
the
it.
social media
Yep.
aspect, it's
No.
unrivaled.
Yeah, you hit on it right there though. You could send it into 6 different ways, but the reality is it's the one account to rule them all. Like if I'm a podcaster, so I'm going to create stuff in Ariel, right? I'm going to create a podcast, but you're not going to go to Ariel. You're never going to go there because you could care less, although you should care because Ariel's pretty cool. But you just go, "Oh, I follow Jennifer. Let me see what she's up to." You don't have to go to Ariel to see that I had a podcast. It's going to show up on my profile. You don't
Mhm.
have to go to Dbuzz to see that I did a micro blog post. You don't have to go to Light 2 to see that I did a photo. You don't have to go to those places. You can. All those interfaces are cool. But if you just want to know what I'm doing, or if I just want to know what each of you are doing, I can just go to you and I can see where you're creating everything. That was revolutionary for me because when I come from social media, if I wanted to create an account on Twitter, guess what? Username and password. If I want to create an account on YouTube, username and password. Facebook, username and password. Twitch, username and password. Instagram, username and password. And when I realized, holy cow, my
Well, if
one
I could, if
access,
I could jump in on that thought,
yeah,
one thing that's even worse, it's the follow me on YouTube, which you put out on Twitter or on Facebook. Follow me on my Twitter account. You
yeah,
have to keep cross pollinating
yeah.
because, like you said, it's a different account, different followers, and you have some in your Instagram account. They're different from your YouTube account. And with here, it's like I follow John. I see whatever John does.
Yep. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It truly is because no matter if we take traditional social media, if we're connected on Twitter, but I'm doing all this cool stuff on Instagram or doing all this cool stuff on YouTube and you don't know I have those accounts and is my username the same there as it is on Twitter?
That's true too.
Then there's like how do you follow? And the beauty is that on Hive you don't need to know all those other things. You need to know the one thing, the one account to rule them all, and that gets you everything. And I'm in love. I know I'm just raving fangirl here, but I just saw that and it was like, holy cow, this is
She fits in,
revolutionary.
John.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's interesting because you and I share similar backgrounds when it comes to online entrepreneurship and social media in a traditional sense. And one of the first aha moments I had is very similar to what you said. It's like this one account. I don't need to go build up my account on Instagram. I don't need to go build it. I can just focus here.
Mm.
The difference, and I'm hoping you could comment on this, is that on Hive, it's sure you could be have 1 million people on Instagram and come to Hive and have a great old time. But what's so unique about Hive is that you can plug into this community and you can start with 0 followers. And if you plug in and you add value and you show up, you're going to grow your one account. So maybe the question I'm trying to put out there is, how important is that for, say, someone who's new to content marketing, social media marketing, online entrepreneurship, because they're told every which way, that they're supposed to build brands online, they're supposed to build social media followings, yada, yada, yada. How important is something like Hive for that specific audience?
It's huge because right now your energy is fractured on traditional social. People are overwhelmed by all that they have to do on traditional social. How many times do you hear people say, "Oh, I got to do another thing," because Twitter didn't come out at the same time as Facebook, didn't come out at the same time as Instagram, didn't come out at the same time as YouTube. We as content creators and as people who are creating content and finding value out there, all those things happened over time. But every single time one came out, all of us, everybody's like, "Oh God, I really don't want to do another account." But then everybody, like TikTok, I really don't want to do a TikTok account, but all of a sudden everybody's talking about it and they're talking about all this other stuff. So then you have to go do another thing, but you've already developed a community in each of these individual places and you've invested time. So you don't want to just abandon them. So you're fracturing your energy in so many ways. The beauty of what Hive has to offer as a single blockchain that you can create content wherever you want and that people can just follow your one account and they'll be able to see everything that you're doing. It's just like I feel like my shoulders dropped when I really understood what was there. And I try and evangelize this because it's such a powerful thing. We're exhausted as people who are on social media. We're exhausted. We're doing so much stuff. And we just like, God, if I could only do one thing. Yet I'm doing many things. But on Hive, you can do the one thing and you don't have to then go, well, follow me here, follow me there. like me here, subscribe here, la 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 here, da da da, whatever. No, one thing, you can see it all. And it's just so liberating. I'm, as again, fangirl.
I think it's too like sometimes when we, Eliana's here in the audience live, and
Hey, Eliana.
what her and I do all the time with Click Track Profit in the community, the online entrepreneur community that we brought over to Hive, is that I think that a lot of people, just like you said, are force fed this idea that they got to go build this and all this attention goes here. It's almost like when they're presented with Hive, it's almost like, oh, it's too good to be true. That's not true. That can't exist, but it does.
Totally does. I think the challenge that we have as people who are trying to evangelize the blockchain Web3 as a destination for creators is exactly what you just said. We're so accustomed and we've been trained to do it the certain way. Like, if I want to make money on YouTube, I need to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watched hours in the last 12 months. What does that mean? That means I am
Yeah.
grinding, putting content out there, building community, go, without ever having earned a penny before I even qualify for their partner program so that I can apply for it. And I think the fact that you can just show up on day one and create your introduction post or create your introduction video or create your first podcast or your first microblog post and potentially earn from that, you're already qualified. You're good to go, bro. Make it happen. Or sis, like, do you, and let the community be part of that process. And the other thing about that is people are like, I'm kind of shy and this intimidates me. I'm like, great. Don't feel like you have to go out of the gate. You can just curate content because there's still value in the curation process. And they're like, what does that mean? I'm like, it's called engagement. I'm like, that thing that you do where you like and you reply and you share on traditional social. When you do that on the blockchain, it's called curation because it has a value associated with it. And there's a value to both you as a creator and you as a curator. And so if you really are not like super shy, there's still a way to earn. Now, are you going to earn as quickly? No, but earning's not guaranteed either. But if you just want to go in there and read and talk to other people and upvote what they have to say, there's still value. And to me, that leveled the playing field because how often are we online? Like, let's say I have that YouTube channel and let's say I qualify for their partner program. And let's say I'm making content that all of a sudden I'm earning and people are subscribing and I'm earning. It's one way. Only I'm earning. What you as someone who is engaged with me, who's followed me, who's subscribed, who likes all my stuff, who shows up for my lives, who does everything, the value that you're receiving is just in the content. But why shouldn't you also earn when I'm earning? Why not? You're giving me value by showing up. So it really kind of ties to me. I think it's really similar to the podcasting value for value model where a creator creates value, people who engage with it or curate give value back, and when there's something to be paid out, if there's something to be paid out, that gets split out in many between everyone so that everyone gets a piece of the pie because the value is given on every side of that. So to me that was another like, oh, it should have been like this always.
Yeah, to me, when I step back and you talk about evangelizing, I'm a big Elon Musk fan. I hope he does tremendous with Tesla because I have Tesla stock. I like what he's doing with Twitter, but to be perfectly honest, I don't give a crap what he does with Twitter. If he makes $100 billion off of it, great. If he doesn't, no skin off my nose. But with Hive, it's a different story. With Facebook, good. I hope Zuckerberg goes broke. He's a jackass. The Google boys, I don't give a crap about them. TikTok, I don't even know who owns that. But with Hive, I feel everything I'm doing for Hive is with a larger purpose because there is an undercurrent here, and it's driven by, albeit a small group of people at this point, John being one of them. They call me Dan, Starkers, of course, the core developers, Tara KCP or whatever his name is. I always mess that up. Acidio. I mean, people we see out and around, and I'm missing a bazillion of them, the Leo finance team and, all of that, the Peak D team and developers and content creators and curators and all these different people. And they're small in number relatively to the internet, to social media, to the Facebooks of the world. I mean, hell, we got even smaller number of users than Facebook has employees, even after they laid off like 18,000. So that shows you how small we are. But like you mentioned earlier, Web3, I think most of us believe, and maybe we're just a bunch of jackasses, but that being so, we're committed jackasses because we believe this idea of Web3, this concept of censorship resistant blockchain, of own your own account, of sovereignty, of freedom, financial freedom. We believe in these tenets and we're here to support it. And so, like you said, I could go through the process and make, however many thousands of videos I got to make to get 1,000 followers on YouTube, to get 4,000 views, to maybe get into their program and they get my first paycheck of $3.95 or $100 or whatever it is. And I know it's not a lot because I watched a video of a guy going through his earnings who's a big shot in the Tesla community. And he said, granted, I don't optimize my content. I don't put ads in the middle of my videos. I'd make more money. But he only, quote unquote, only made 70 grand. This guy has like 300,000 or 400,000 followers.
Wow.
And it's like, when I look at that, and you're right. I mean, I did a tweet and a post a few weeks ago when I hit my 2,000 post on 3Speak. And I said, listen, you go to 3Speak, you don't have to get 1,000 followers. You don't have to, have 4,000 hours worth of views. Hell, if Eddie Spino comes by with the manual curation of that 3Speak account, you're going to be making money on your first video. Mm-hmm. And I know it's not about the money, but I got 0 videos on YouTube. I got over 2,000 videos on 3Speak. That's where my heart lies. That's where my commitment is. And anything that's on Hive, I try to support. Obviously, I'm not capable of supporting everything from time frame to lack of ability. But what I can, I try to support. And because I think the more success we have at the individual apps, the more success we have in totality.
No, I completely agree. I mean, we look at this as a group effort, and I don't feel like I'm alone in this. I feel like it's all of us going in the same direction in the things that interest us, right? Do you have to do video? Do you have to do podcast? No, do whatever you want. The dApps are there. Find your sweet spot. And one of the things I encourage the folks that I'm onboarding and anybody who listens to the Web3 101 or any of the education stuff that I do, what is the thing you do right now in traditional social that's your sweet spot, that you're like, I love this? And for me, when I first joined Hive, it was I like Twitter and I like blogging. So the 2 places I hung out was Dbuzz and Hive.blog. And that's it. And my friend Shane kept telling me about Peak D and Ecency, and I was like, la 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 la. I couldn't take it because there's so much going on and it felt overwhelming. So I encourage folks, start small. Start with the sweet spot. If you're someone who's all about that Instagram, find the photography dApps. Like2 is one that I personally am finding a lot of happiness with, but they're not the only one out there. Try them all. See which one you like. And if you're someone who likes communities, that's one of the things I love about Hive is that there's some really vibrant and rich communities in Hive. So many. I mean, the Wednesday Walk and the Cinnamon Cup Coffee, since I love coffee. And we have people like Tracy York and people like, Dream Steam and people like Shadows Pub who run PYPT and Dreamport and all these communities, the Ladies of Hive and ActiFit for Fitness if you want to do Move to Earn. Whatever it is that you do right now in the real world, you can do it on Hive. And it's an amazing place. I mean, the fitness thing, the Move to Earn, you mean that thing I do already that I don't have to actually change anything that I do? I just have to create my Hive account and connect ActiFit to my device. And all of a sudden, when I do my daily fitness or if I go for a walk or a run, apparently, if you chase Pokemon Go, that's also something you can do. You can earn points on there. So the opportunity to do the same thing that I do right now in the real world, to also do it on Hive, it was like, this is a no-brainer. And that's this evangelism part where I'm like, you have to know this exists. If you're a creator, you're grinding on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, and there are opportunities there to earn money, but you have to qualify for those opportunities within the app. Now, can we all sell workshops, sell courses, sell products, sell services? Yes, we can on traditional web, but we're just talking about the actual act of creating a microblog post, of creating a podcast episode, of creating a single video, of creating a single blog post. That act of creating content that comes out of our head, comes out of our desire to share things that we have to say because we've got a mission and a message and we got to get it out into the world. That has an opportunity to both, you can own it, because right now we know that if Facebook decides you're going to jail, you're going to jail.
Mm.
And if Twitter decides we don't like what you're doing, your account's gone. If YouTube decides they don't like what you're doing, your stuff's gone. That's not the case. Ownership and a potential for earning, not a guarantee, but a potential for earning, but ownership for sure.
So
Yeah,
I
and it
don't know
just
if you
takes
know this, but Task, I don't know if you know this, Jennifer, but Task is a card-carrying member of Pokemon Go, and he is using ActiFit every day to
Yeah,
find his
but mine
Pokemon's.
is the rated X version. But anyway, leave that aside. But it does take some creativity because I'll tell you something John did, and he's a very resourceful young lad there. And you mentioned ActiFit. He's a big fan of ActiFit, and he seriously increased his steps recently. He got a pit bull pup, and he now ties his phone to the dog and lets the dog out. He gets 50,000 steps a
Excuse me,
day.
sir. Excuse me, Rottweiler. Okay,
Rottweiler, sorry, not a pit bull.
Rottweiler
Rottweiler.
fanboy here.
So
Okay,
you get what, 60,000 steps a day?
65
He just
on a good day. Yeah.
lets the dog go. Yeah,
Nice.
it's there is there is something here for everybody. And what we haven't really mentioned, which is a big change, John and I talk about this quite often. We haven't lately, but when all of us joined, and John and I stayed, and somebody in this conversation left. But anyway, leaving that aside, when we started, there was Steam and SHBD. That's what you got paid in. That's all there was. There was no layer 2. There was no communities. There
He
was no
mentioned it.
niches where you
I
could
know.
find. And now you can go in to oh wait, I wasn't allowed to say that.
You weren't supposed to say the S word, man.
I was talking about the token, not the ecosystem or the blockchain. You got to make this clear to me. I didn't know we weren't allowed to speak about the token. But anyway, now if you're into cryptocurrency, which everybody is by default by being on Hive, you can get involved in Leo Finance. If you're involved in any type of entrepreneurial business, you can go and get involved in CTP. You got STEM Geeks, you got Bro, you got all these other different areas that you can focus upon, which not only is it like you're saying, finding your niche with, okay, what is it that you do on social media that you really enjoy that you can do? Blogging,
Start there.
videos,
Yeah.
but you can also narrow it down to a community and say, hey, I like bread making. Okay, go to the foodie community. If I guess bread making could fit into the foodies. And if not, they'll kick you out. You go find the bread making community. But, you can find it anywhere. And because of that, and we're not even into smart contracts yet. I'm excited when some of that comes out, because then you'll get communities where you'll say, okay, I don't see my community here, so start one. Well, I'll start a community and spin up a token. Go ahead, do it. Knock yourself out. And when we get to that point, I think it's going to go to another level, because now all of a sudden, me being the only basket weaving lover on Hive, I can start the community, I can start the token, and then I can go attract my fellow basket weaving lovers, and we can have a thriving community and create an economy with it all around our love and our passion of basket weaving, and sell our baskets to each other or give each other tips and reward each other for tips. I mean, that's really the potential we have here.
I love that. I have a Napod Pomo community that I created in 2021 just to test it out as an experiment. National Podcast Post Month was something that I created in 2007, 30 podcast episodes in 30 days, a challenge. And I decided to test it out on Hive. And so I created a community, and it was me and 4 other people on Hive. And of course, in the traditional space, I had, more people. But the fact that anybody wanted to join me at all was like, ooh, this is kind of cool. This year, I collaborated with Creative Work Hour that Alessandra White does. I collaborated with Dreamport that Dreams Team does. I collaborated with Shadows Pub from PYPT. And all of a sudden, that little community grew. And we had a lot more people participating in Hive and a lot more people testing out Ariel who didn't even know that there was a podcasting DApp on there. And so there's this really beautiful thing that can happen when you collaborate even within Hive. I'm doing this little thing, everyone's doing their little thing, but when we all get together, we can have this really amazing flourish of energy, of knowledge, of sharing. And for me, when somebody goes through a National Podcast Post Month and decides that they're a podcaster now, they've never podcasted before, but they did this challenge and now they're a podcaster, I feel like an angel got its wings because I love podcasting and I want other folks to know about it. But the fact that all of us could post on Hive and earn was kind of an exciting thing, because that very first year, I earned, and this is a project I had been doing for the previous 14, 13 years. This was year 15. So I wasn't doing anything different than I ever did. All I did was change my destination. When I changed my destination from the traditional web to Web3, there was a totally different thing that happened. And it's not like as if I've got a lot of people following me on Hive. I don't need a lot of people. And don't really care about numbers for numbers' sake. I would rather have an engaged community and a handful of folks that are like, we're all like on fire for the same types of things or similar things, than to have 10,000 people who could give a crap, right? Let's just be honest. So I really want to have that engaged community. And my experience on Hive has been that with a small group of folks. I mean, I have a super engaged community there that we're all kind of within one another's sphere. And yet on Web 2, it takes much longer to do those things. And so I'm not sure if it's because, like what you said, that it's smaller, and maybe because it's smaller and because we're all kind of going in a similar forward momentum, that it's a much more committed community. And I don't know if committed could be used in good or bad, but I kind of think of it as in a good way, that we're committed in a positive way to really seeing this through our
as
creation.
opposed to needs institutionalized.
Right.
Right.
Maybe.
Which many of us probably could qualify on that end. But well, let me tell you, one of the good friends of one of our good friends of the show is Jimmy Adamas. Now, John, of course, knew him because he was in the CTP realm. I didn't really know the guy, and he was around but wasn't around. And one day, it, like you were saying, it clicked with him, and all of a sudden, this son of a bitch is everywhere. I mean, everywhere. And so I invite him on the show. John didn't even know, but I invited him on the show. I said, the reason why you're on the show is because you're everywhere. And I love Jimmy because even now, I mean, I follow him, so he shows up on my friends feed on Hive. Then he's in listeners. Then I see him in Leo threads. Then I go to views and I see his posts. Then I see him in Leo threads posting about views. Then he's on Twitter posting his Peak D post about views. And it's amazing how little effort, relatively speaking, it takes to stand out here. And one thing you mentioned that I think is very interesting, and it is so true, where we all get in our bubbles, and I'll use John and I as an example. We follow each other. Between the two of us, we probably wrote a dozen articles about views since that went live in the last month and a half or whatever it is, maybe even more. We've talked about it on this show a number of times. We've had shows dedicated to this. We had Blaine on talking about it. We got Blaine on CTT talking about it. You know, every day I thread about it. I drop it on Twitter. John drops it on Twitter. And you know what happens in threads every day? Invariably, somebody will say, what is views? What is views?
Dude, don't go read my post a couple days ago. Like that was the whole, people telling me that it's not promoted enough and we don't talk about it enough. And I'm like, is it, or you're just not paying attention?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I understand there's pockets of people who, surprisingly, John, cover your ears. There's pockets of people on Hive who don't follow John and I. As
What?
Yeah, I know. I'm baffled too, but hey, there is the institutionalized group of us that exists. But it's like, yes, you have to get, because there's so much showing up. And there was just another app project that I saw on Twitter that somebody retweeted. It's on Hive. It's kind of like a Hive education tutorial game that somebody set up a website. And it's like, holy crap. Of course, by the time I got back to Threads, the same person had posted it on Threads. And it's like, these are the communication mechanisms we
Mhm.
need to start utilizing. And so I'll tell you what, if you spend any time in Threads, you are going to know what views is, because I keep talking about views there and saying, how many views are you doing today? Are you using this? You can send views right from view, or you can send other people's posts right from views to Threads. Are you using it?
I think
And
we need a, views challenge, like a 30-day views challenge.
It's coming as soon as the new framework is on the new framework. I have tons of plans for that. It's coming, I promise you, because Task is winning by a long shot. But I think if we incentivize it a bit, I think, people would give him a run for his money. So,
Mm.
see, but you mentioned, Jennifer, the not in it for the money, and Views has no tokenization at this point, which is great because it gives them time to work things out. But I love Views because I loved using Stumble Upon when it was out.
Gosh, is that still around, Stumble Upon? It seems
No,
like such a long
yeah,
time
it's
ago.
called Views now. It's called
No.
Views now.
Okay,
Views.io is the new Stumble Upon. Yes,
got it.
it's still around. It's been relabeled, new
Mm,
ownership group. It's a wonderful app. It's tied to Hive now. It's a Web3 app, no longer Web2 app.
got
No,
it.
they went under because, from what John said, he knew it. He studied it in more detail. They
Mhm.
evidently had a bad business model, but the application idea
Yeah, the
was sound.
discovery. Yeah, I
Yes.
liked it. I remember a long time ago, kind of being surprised, and it's a great way to discover content and also discover people that you'd like to get to know, but you never had an opportunity to get to know them because as much as we say that Hive is small, it's global, baby, and there's a lot on there that we may not see. And so the fact is, if there's an opportunity to accidentally discover my new favorite show or my new favorite blogger, I'm a fan. I think that's a good way to go. So I can
Well,
see where it's going to go.
it's interesting you say that because everybody says, oh, there's shit posts on Hive and this and that, and very few people. By going through Views, I realized how good the work is by most people on Hive. Yes, you come across the shit post, but and some of it is not worthy of Hive rewards, but it's still really good content, because you'll get these people who take, let's say, like a two, and if you're into travel, all of a sudden it'll be their day at some museum
Oh,
in
mhm.
Prague or something like that. And it's just a really cool post of just 4 or 5 photos. And it's like, there's a lot of people putting together some really good stuff out there. I mean, you can always debate whether it's quality or not quality, rewards, all that crap. But when you're just talking really good stuff,
Mhm.
there's a lot of talented, insightful, creative people, and that's what you find with Views. And it takes you outside your niche, even though mine tends to be cryptocurrency and business and Leo finance related. I still get travel stuff. I still get, and when I up thumb it, that means I'm going to get more of it because, I'm telling the machine learning engine that I want to see more of this. But you know what? I like seeing travel blogs and stuff like that, and what's going on around the world, and somebody's, day in Cambodia and stuff like that. So that, I think, is really something that's very powerful, and goes back to, find your niche, but then we tend to get stuck in
Mhm.
our niche. And
Well,
this kind
open
of gets
yourself
us
up. Yeah.
out of it, and at least we get to see other stuff, because it's like, I can tell you who's going to be on my feed tomorrow morning. I can almost tell you by the person, because it's like it's the same 15 people posting.
A whole lot of
Mhm.
Jimmy. Yeah.
Well, so you bring up a really good point though about somebody in Cambodia, right? So, um, I was so pleasantly surprised when I first joined and was, using Dbuzz, was that I was seeing posts from people who were posting in languages that I did not know what language it was. And yet they were having breakfast with their family. They were walking in their town or their village or wherever they were from. In other words, they were human beings on planet Earth living their life. And it didn't matter that they were in a country that was nowhere near me. And it didn't matter that they spoke a language that wasn't my own. I loved the opportunity that all of a sudden I could have like a bird's eye view or a slight glimpse into someone else's life that was so far removed from my own. And you're not going to get that on traditional social because the algorithms are going to say, well, that person isn't anywhere near Jennifer, and that person doesn't even speak Jennifer's language, so we're not going to show Jennifer that person's photos. And yet I was so charmed by that opportunity to see those kinds of things that I would never have seen in a traditional space. And I just so appreciate the fact that it's visible, it's there, and it's just a wonderful thing for me. It was just like, whoa, this is cool.
Let's
I think it's going to be cool when Views opens up and goes back to the Genesis block. And then all of a sudden, what, 7 years, almost 7 years worth of content is opened up, and people who are no longer here, but we used to. I mean, the wonderful thing about online is out of sight, out of mind. And
Yeah.
if John's not around within 3 weeks, I'll forget about him. John who? Oh yeah, I remember that guy. That's how it works. Out of sight, out of mind. And it's like there's people. I mean, I'll even ask John. Hey, John, what was that guy's name that I used to watch his video every morning? You liked him. We talked about what the hell? Oh yeah,
Exile.
yeah. And it's
Exile.
like, oh yeah, I forgot his name. And it's like, but these people will come back to life because all their posts are still there, and Views is going to bring that in and going to get all that content and start feeding it through. And I think that's going to really be just a real eye opener for people.
It'll be like a walk down memory lane in some cases.
It certainly is for those who've been around.
Let's play devil's advocate here. We're gonna have some fun here.
All right.
Jennifer, you're gonna be put on front now. This is what your task is. If there was a few things, because we're sitting here and we're saying we all love Hive. We're Hive fanboys and fangirls. We love it. We use it. Like we don't even need three. Give me your top two, let's say, things that you would change on the blockchain if you had a magic wand and you could say, okay, we're gonna fix this. What would be two things you'd do right away?
Well, I think everyone always talks about making it easier for more people to join because it's kind of a painful thing if you're on your own. So that's kind of a no-brainer right there. But the one thing I think in order to really be open up to more of the world would be to have accessibility features built into the framework of all the dApps. And simple things as much as having alt text on photos and alt text on videos, and using the ability to use camel case and hashtags, which you can't do now. Meaning that if you were using multiple words in a hashtag, that the first letter of each of those words is capitalized so that somebody who is using a text reader will be able to understand what that is. So I think accessibility features being built into the dApps, and that as we go forward, we start keeping in mind that if we're going to be a blockchain for everyone, we kind of have to be a blockchain for everyone. And I would think those are the two that really stand out. There's a lot to love about Hive, so much to love. But like anything else, it's built by humans, and we as humans are works in progress, as is the blockchain. It's a work in progress. The beauty of it is that we all get to decide what that can be. If there isn't a community that exists around bread baking, basket weaving podcasters, well, guess what?
Different
You can
community,
make it.
different community.
You can make it. And if
You
there's a
can make
dApp,
the bread making, basket weaving community if you want, but I'm gonna have two separate communities because I don't want to mix my bread baking people with my basket weaving people because I've noticed they tend not to get along.
Got it. We want to keep the peace. But if you
Yes.
have an idea for a DAO and you either are a developer or an idea person, if you're the idea person, find the developer, and you all can work together to build something that exists. It's there for you to do it. There isn't anyone whose permission you have to ask to do these things. If you have to ask someone's permission, stand in front of the mirror and give yourself that permission to do the thing, whatever that is. And so as this is kind of like this living, breathing, growing thing, as we are as human beings living, breathing, and growing, I feel like the more broad scope of people who enter in, they'll have their own ideas, and it'll just continue to grow and grow. And where people find their tribe or their community or things that they like, they'll hang out there. But the beauty of it is that no matter how many things come upon it, no matter how many DAOs, how many communities, if any of us decides to be in those places, I don't have to go follow you to those communities, although maybe I will, but I just have to follow you, and I'll be able to see all the things that you're doing because I'm going to follow your one account, and it's the one account to rule them all. And that to me is really, really powerful as we become busier and busier and life begins to get crowded and crowded. The simplicity is a wonderful thing, and I find myself spending more and more time over here, but we've got to evangelize the Web 2 people to come over here and to learn about this, to know that it's even something possible for them, and it's gonna take time for the world to catch up. If we think about the Rogers bell curve, we're still at that cross of innovation and early adopter. We haven't hit mainstream. That'll come, and right now what we're doing is we're laying the framework for those folks and building the foundational communities, the foundational dApps, the foundational pieces that are all going to fit in there so that we can welcome the folks who are our spice and flavor, right? Because every dApp chain has its own spice and flavor. Every community has its own spice and flavor. And so people who are attracted to that spice and flavor will show up and add value to what's here already. And so we're preparing for the time when people who like us and the Hive spice and flavor show up so that they can add to this community.
Perfect. I mean, there you go.
Do I get to play too or no?
What happened? Sorry?
Do I get to play too or no? Only she gets to play.
No, just dude, we know what you would do. Okay, you would.
What
you
would
would
I
make,
do?
You would make Leo Threads the front of every single thing on the planet, and then you'd throw in views for good measure, right?
Well, that's true too. But no, actually, smart contracts is my number one. That's one thing I think we're desperate for, a robot smart contract platform. But yes, and I also would make every dApp should have CryptoManiacs podcast front and center of their home landing page.
I totally agree with that. So, Jennifer, here we go. We're still. It's 20 questions. Well, it's not going to be 20 questions, but we're just going to keep. You got the magic wand. You can change it all here.
Mhm.
You're introducing, because you do the social media stuff. So you guys do your Twitter Spaces. You do a lot of stuff like that. You're evangelizing the blockchain. Someone's
Mhm.
brand new to Hive. You tell them this is what they need to do. Let's do 2 or 3, whatever the best piece of advice you would wrap up and package to someone who's brand new here, that's coming from that traditional social media to come into Hive. What would you suggest they do?
I usually start with just the very foundational piece of understanding what a blockchain is for creators. And I tell everybody, I come at this with a very narrow focus. I'm not talking about cryptocurrency trading, although you can do that. I'm not talking about DeFi. I'm really just talking as the same types of content that I create on Web 2, taking that same type of things but creating it in a new destination, the blockchain. So since I approach it from that way, and that's who I'm talking to is strictly creators, I have to give them the framework of what a blockchain is and what dApps are, because they're like, I don't get it. What does that mean? And so in January of last year, I was doing this 30-day blockchain creators challenge on Twitter Spaces, trying to give little nuggets of information. And I kept getting so much pushback where people were like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And I thought, okay, I need to really rethink this. And then I had an idea. And I then the next day went back, I go, here's what the blockchain and the dApps are like. And everybody was like, that makes sense. And so what I did was I compared the blockchain to a mall, a shopping mall that's in your town. And I said, a blockchain is like a shopping mall. In that mall, there's a lot of stores, all kinds of stores that do different things. Some of them do similar things, but each of them is a little bit unique. Just like dApps, decentralized apps are on a blockchain. Now you can enter the mall with your one account to rule the mall. You can enter the mall and you can go wherever you want to go and do whatever you want to do. There's also front ends to the mall, right? You can go to Nordstrom's, you can go to Macy's, you can go to Dillard's, and you can enter the mall through those places. Well, some of the dApps have front ends, like Leo Finance, right? Like DBuzz, like to these, like Three Speak, like Ariel. They have their own front ends, and so you can enter the mall and those dApps from the back end. Because I could go to Ariel on Hive, or I could go to Ariel.one. Doesn't matter. Wherever I create that content, it's going to be in the same place. And so I tell them, if you like Nordstrom's and you're like, I like Nordstrom's, the clothes are great. They have a little cafe. They got a dude playing piano. I don't really want to go anywhere else. I don't care about the rest of the blockchain. Fine. You found a dApp that it's your jam and that's where you're going to hang out. You can. I don't have to go to your dApp that you love to hang out. I can just go to you and I'm going to see everything you're doing. You can just go to me. You can see everything I'm doing. So I have to lay the framework of what's a blockchain and why would I care and how does it work? So the stores are like the dApps or like things like Twitter on Web 2 or Facebook or anything else. So I start there by laying that framework so that they at least have an understanding of why I'm talking about the blockchain as another destination for their content. Then I lead into what I just shared with you earlier, which is find the thing that you like to do now. That's so easy. Like for me, it was Twitter and blogging. For someone else, it might be video, or someone else, it might be photos. I can tell you right now that a lot of the folks that I'm talking to, that I'm evangelizing and help to onboard, when I tell them about Move to Earn, because I'm like, do you use like a Nike Plus or a Fitbit or a what's it called, Strava or Map My Ride or Map My Fitness or any number of those things? Are like, yeah. Did you know that you could just connect your phone to to the blockchain and you could just move to earn? To me, finding that low lift, the low barrier to entry is kind of the gateway for folks to finally understand how it works because they're already using the move to earn. They just don't know it. Well, they're moving, but they're not earning yet. So ActiveFit is a really great gateway for folks for whom that's important. For other folks, they're like, I really like Twitter. I'm like, oh, let's go hang out at DBuzz. And for other folks, they're all about photos. I'm like, oh, you probably want to go check out these. So trying to find each individual's low lift is really kind of, for me, has been the key to success because when I tell them about all the things, they're like how I was when Shane was trying to tell me about peak decency. I was
Way
like,
too
la la
much.
la
Yeah,
la. It's too much. You have
yeah.
to just ease them into it slowly with something that's easy for them. And when they start seeing the engagement, when they start seeing the earnings, when they start seeing that, then they're mentally prepared. Okay, well, what else is there? Then you can take them there. So I kind of feel like because we know how amazing Hive is and all the things that you can do, we want to tell everybody, here's all the cool stuff you can do. It's the fire hose approach that overwhelms them, and so they back up and they like are like trying to get away from you're like, oh, that's too much. So I feel like find the one thing, and just let them do that at their own pace as they're comfortable. And then when they're ready, they'll come back to you and say, I know you mentioned there were other things. What else is on there? So I think it's patience and time more than anything else. It's not, you said magic wand. If it was a magic wand, I'd have everybody really see that everything they're doing is available over here. But when I try and do that, it's overwhelming.
No.
So slow and steady kind of wins the race because then they become rabid fans through their own pursuit of it and not me trying to fire hose them with all of this great knowledge and information.
Do you find, let me think of how to phrase this, because when you come to Hive, yes, it could be overwhelming. It's overwhelming with what you just described. And you didn't even scratch the surface with even
Okay.
one fingernail of the different layers and how the rabbit holes to go down,
Mhm.
as you're well aware.
Yeah.
And when what you have people like myself, they call me Dan, John to a certain degree, a lot of different people addicted. They think about this stuff, they write about this stuff, they go down different rabbit holes and bring this
Mhm.
information to the surface. And I don't expect people to do that. But do you believe, or do you find that most people you bring on, that they are self-starters where you give them a little nudge and then they'll go out and start looking and digging and diving? Or is it, do most people just say, okay, you showed me this active fit thing. Okay, you showed me this peak D thing. Okay, fine. I got these two things. I get it. And that's about as far as they go, because John and I talk all the time about, it's like you lead these people to water and it's like we must have contaminated the water because nobody's going to drink. And it's like,
Right.
what is wrong with you people? And maybe it's just us where
No.
we're so blind with our love for this stuff. But it's like, if you saw what I see, you'd be
Yeah.
wanting to like spend 20 hours a day here learning about this stuff too.
Right.
What do you find most of the people you're introducing this to, where do they fall on that scale?
So I also preface their involvement by letting them know that this is for early adopters. Like I tell
Mhm.
people, there is no rush. There's a lot of time. Take your time. Be the sponge. Learn from people who speak plainly. Hopefully, if you're listening to me, you find that what I say is, in plain English or just plainly. It's simple. It's easy to understand. If you are trying to learn about this and you're just overwhelmed by someone, that may not be the person you're supposed to learn from. Find people that you can understand from. Take your time. I do all kinds of weekly shows, much like you all. I do workshops, I do trainings, I speak on virtual stages, all the time. And what I tell everybody is there's really no rush. Like, make sure this makes sense for you. Start with something that you already like to do. Don't feel like you have to hurry, hurry, hurry. This is not the time. Now, there will be a time when it's hurry, hurry, hurry. This is not it yet. Ease your way into it. And you're absolutely right. There are folks that if you look, because the cool thing, so here's the really cool thing about Hive. The proof is in the pudding, my friends, for everybody watching live and later. You know how on Instagram, someone says, "Oh, I have 1 million followers. They could be all bots. What do we know? And I'm making this
Yes.
much money." We have no idea if that's true or not. It looks like it, but is it real? Well, on the blockchain, the proof is in the pudding. If someone says they're this person and they've done that thing and they made this much, guess what? It's there for everybody to see, and it's so liberating to not feel like, is this person real? Am I being told the truth? It's all there. So if you look at
Definitely.
the people that I've onboarded, you will say that majority of them created an account and didn't go, and you tell everybody, make your introduction post, and you give them like, here, use these hashtags, and here's some examples of introduction posts. And a lot of those people just freeze and they don't do it. And then the people that do, then they'll continue on. But you can see the people I've onboarded, and in the early days, I was overwhelming people. This is how come I've learned to pull back and
Mm.
restrain myself, because I was like, "Oh, you can do this and you can do that and go here and go there." And those are the folks that created an account because they were like, "Yeah, this looks really good, Jennifer." And then they were so overwhelmed, they made zero decisions to take action. And I realized I'm doing this wrong. I'm so excited about this because of what's going on. Let me pull back and rethink about this. And that's how I came up with the concepting of, I really need to look at early adopters, because if you're an early adopter, you're an early adopter. And so you recognize that there's going to be hurdles. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge. It's going to take time. So you already have that understanding of yourself and you have that mindset. But even with early adopters, I realized I needed to not be so enthusiastic and showing them all the things because I was just overwhelming them. So I just have found that if I just tell them there's no rush, take your time, start with one thing or two things that you really enjoy, spend time there, figure it out. And when you're ready, I'll show you other things, or watch what I'm doing if you want to. That's the cool thing. You see what everyone else is doing. So I think, so it's not just you all, you haven't contaminated the water. It's really just folks have to get where they're comfortable with this. And eventually there's going to be a rush like the California gold rush where everybody's going to want to be here. We're not there yet. But the way I look at it is that we need to guide people who are going to also be like us, good stewards, good community members, people who are going to be there to support one another. I know if I have a question, I'm like, I don't know this thing, that I can go to the community and they're going to say, oh, here's a resource, or here's this, or they'll explain it to me. We need to bring more people like that. So the way that I tell the people that I'm onboarding is, I had a guide. His name was Shane, or is Shane. And he was there to guide me and my family. And I needed that guide because I would encounter something. I'm like, what does that mean? I don't understand this. And he would explain it to me. And of course, now I do. So what I tell people is, I'm going to be your guide. My goal is not only for you to understand it for yourself, but eventually for you to guide others in the same way, to be there to support them, to encourage them, to be part of that process. It's kind of a long tail thing. It's not like this, right? It takes time. So I feel like that's what it is. You haven't contaminated the water. Some folks are ready for it, some aren't. We're here when they are.
Love it.
And I'm having deja vu all over again
Yeah, it's
because I'm just thinking about all the times you talked about these content creators, and they said, I introduced this program and I made $55,332 in the first
yeah.
28.65
When she said that,
minutes.
when she said that, I kind of laughed because that's what Blaine and I always talk about, because that's why we think a lot of the internet marketing guru guys haven't shown up yet, because they can't go, oh, I made $20,000 in 2 days on Hive. Okay, bucko, let's see it. Like you
The
can't, they
proof
can't
is
do
in the
that.
pudding. It's
Yep.
there.
Yeah. And that's what's beautiful about this place. This is why I
Hmm.
think that, it might not have all the flashy stuff yet, but like you said, I think
I don't know. It's
it's the
pretty
crawl
flashy.
now. Oh yeah, it is. But like the crawl is happening, but there will be a sprint,
Oh,
and
yeah.
everyone's gonna want a Hive account, and it's great stuff. Preaching to the choir here, right?
Right. Not
Not
everyone likes
everyone
pudding.
likes pudding. What the hell's Eliana talking?
Eliana's thinking pudding, I guess. Yes, it's okay. It's okay.
It's an old-fashioned saying, but maybe it's an old-fashioned saying, because isn't that an old, like kind of like a retro saying? Proof is in the pudding. What would be another example?
No,
Another
Are you calling
that works.
Eliana old?
no, me, like, maybe I'm using an old term.
No, that works. That's
Okay,
perfect.
okay.
No, you're
Sorry,
fine. It's Eliana. We question her sanity at times, but
oh, definitely. I mean, she hangs out with Blaine and I every day. I mean,
well, yeah, I guess we can't blame her. I mean, if I hung out with you two, I'd be nuts too.
oh, exactly, exactly. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to mute the mic if you're hearing the bird going crazy beside me here. It's not cooperating with me on this impromptu setup I got here. So
Your new studio, your impromptu studio.
Eliana, it's 1
Mm.
a.m. here. I can do whatever. It's a blockchain, Eliana. You
Oh,
can do
there's Blaine.
whatever
Speak.
anytime you want.
The proof is in the steak. Look at Blaine. Savage.
Nice.
Stake. Notice how he spelt that. Very
Yep.
creative.
Yeah.
A little innuendo by Mr. Jones with no E in his first name, but E in his second name.
Yep. So, Jennifer, I don't know if you are aware of this, but you are going to be the very happy and proud owner of a CryptoManiacs badge.
Oh, I did not know this. That's exciting.
Me and Task, like we try to like brag about this, like we get to give people a badge on Hive Buzz. No one really. Everyone's like, "Oh, cool."
That's cool. I think
Yeah.
that's cool. Thanks.
But the deal is that we've got to have you back at a later date. So it's not just we'll see you again next year. It's you have to commit that you will be a returning guest, because that's what we have here at the CryptoManiacs. It's you do have the badge, Blaine. Look at Blaine, killing me.
Well, I love that you're willing to have me back. I didn't scare everybody off. I love it.
No, usually it's us who scare most of the guests off. That's why John says this, to test and feel where you stand. So if you come back, it's like, okay,
exactly,
1 out of 3
exactly.
return. The other 2 like say, I'm not going to deal with those jackasses.
They're like,
again.
I'm out of here. No,
But,
yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to talk about what's happening in Hive and some of the fun stuff that's going on. I mean, I think what folks need to realize is that there are things that are the status quo, but if you have an idea for something, create it, build it. It's here.
Write
You
a
can
blog
do
post
it.
about it. Other people will pick up on it and write posts about it. That's what we
Right.
do. John, I think we need to do a little housekeeping here. We have, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, a little transition period going on. Tuesday will be John and I. We will be doing question and answers if he posts a question and answer post. If he doesn't, then John and I will talk about Hive. Next week, we have Hive Cuba on Thursday, we believe. I'll have to verify. So we're going to be talking about what's going on with Cuba and Hive, hence the name Hive Cuba. And we will also have another friend of the show, Eddie Spino, on, who, if there is some language difficulties, because John's working on his Bollinger Bands and not studying his Spanish. So we're going to bring Eddie Spino on to help us with any translations if need be, unless in the next 8 days, John.
Lines.
What's that?
RSI lines.
Oh, you changed. Well, drop the
Bollinger.
RSI, drop the Bollinger Bands, and study Spanish so you can speak to Hive Cuba next week in his native tongue, and we can have a great show.
Perfect. Yes, and apologies, Jennifer, for the craziness for the time schedule and getting my life is in utter chaos this week, and I do appreciate your flexibility with our scheduling conflicts.
Yeah, well, but John, what you don't know is she's the one who stood us up on Tuesday.
What?
I can't no, dude. I can't blame anyone for anything.
She double booked herself.
Dude, I'm the only one that can be.
Or maybe that was last week.
Couple of weeks. So Eliana says the time is perfect.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Either way, it all worked out. You made it to the show. You'll get a badge. Keep that. That may be worth some money someday. Not financial advice. Maybe not. But like John said, you'll have to show up again next time. You don't get any more badges, so next time's free.
It's a one-off thing. That's it. Yeah, and then it's like you're tied to us forever now. We can call back and beg for guests, right? Is that what we do?
Well, or you could just be like Brian in London and say, "What's the next slot you have available? I want to come on." Brian, you were just on 2 weeks ago. I want to come on
no
again.
joke. He
Okay.
literally,
I tell you what, Brian in London is doing some amazing things in the podcasting space with
Yes,
podcasting
he is.
2.0. The fact that
Yes, he is.
Hive is a backbone or the cornerstone of what's happening there. It's pretty
Podping is one
powerful
of my
stuff.
favorite projects because it is a protocol that is a base system for these podcasting apps.
Mhm.
Once they latch onto it, they're not going to change. If it works, solves their problem, serves their purposes, 10 years from now, they're still going to be using Podping.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yep. It's huge. Big
we're
stuff.
fans of Brian.
Me too. I like him. He's a good guy.
If
Yep.
you see you, everyone that's watching this can't see it, but you guys can see my arm here in the left there. I'm literally trying to make sure the bird doesn't make. So I have a little spray bottle with water, and I'm spraying the bird every like second.
At least
So it,
he's
like,
not sitting
cuts
there
up.
squeezing the life out of the
No,
bird.
I got the spray bottle with water, and anytime it starts making noise, I'm spraying it. So that's why you see me like looking over here. I'm so bad, but I just. Jennifer, thank you very much for coming and sharing with us everything that you love about this place and your story. And we look forward to having you back and everything that you're doing, especially with all the work with High Spaces and just we appreciate being an evangelist for the blockchain. I mean, this is what we need it, right? So,
And John,
Absolutely.
you realize you just killed our PETA sponsorship, don't you?
well, I'm spraying a bird with water, man.
But
That's
you're actually providing a service because you're giving the bird a bath.
a bath, and birds need it for their feathers. So
Yep.
I'm actually helping it out, Task. I'm being a good PETA guy.
Well, on that note,
On
hit
that
the damn stop button, I think. It's time to end this circus.
Thank you all. It was great. Fantastic time.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Ciao.